What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's reaction video is, could the US military conquer the UK if it wanted to? Now, we have done quite a few US military reactions and pretty much shown kind of like the deadly force of the US, the amount of money they've put in and stuff like that. What do you reckon to that question?
I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, they definitely have a big, the big military.
Yep.
But it'd be interesting to see like how and what way they would do it if they could do it.
Yeah. Yeah, because like
sort of.
It's different, I guess. It's different being more powerful than coming to your backyard and completely taking over.
100%.
I won't give you the full answer. I'm pretty sure the video does answer it pretty quickly. And I will just say, we're best friends with you legends. Like, and again, I don't think it'll ever happen. We're brothers at the end of the day, and sisters, obviously, with the US, which is absolutely amazing. But this is just kind of like, if anything did happen. Yeah. And if it did, we'll be on the first flight to America, yeah?
Yeah, we're Americans now.
Let's check it out. Could the US military conquer the UK if it wanted to? What we got?
We all know US and UK are close allies, and that US armed might is far greater than that of UK. But just for argument's sake, and to learn what sort of limitations waging warfare across the ocean implies, this video will explore US invading the United Kingdom. So, with just the airplanes and ships left to count on, is an invasion over the Atlantic viable? And now, could US military successfully invade UK if it wanted to? Some rules will apply. US gets no overseas bases, and all other countries are impassable. Distance from US to UK mainland is pretty big, especially when reaching London. Before trying to land any troops, the seas must first be clear of British ships, and Royal Air Force must be suppressed. US has a massive advantage when it comes to naval assets. Basically, all of its assets are made for oceans and could operate near UK if needed. While the Americans would need to sail to and from Britain, taking weeks away from their actual presence, US Navy could pretty much do whatever it pleases near the UK. It's interesting to point out that most of US ships do not carry anti-ship missiles. US Navy prefers to use their carriers for such missions. British Royal Navy is to go down a similar route. Their Harpoon missiles are old and set to be retired soon. Not all ships have them. Only a minor part of the British fleet has modern air defense systems. Basically, the sea war would be fought above the sea and under it, but the British lacked anti-ship missiles for its aircraft. Furthermore, British Tornado aircraft ceased to train for the anti-ship missions almost 2 decades ago. Basically, if UK had to try and do air raids against US fleet, it would be down to 2 weapons: laser-guided bombs and short-range tactical missiles. Brimstone in particular might be the weapon of choice. While its warhead is tiny, Brimstone 2 has a decent range. Still, against dozens of potent destroyers designed to deal with many anti-ship missiles at once, it's unlikely UK could do much.
I love that. Like, it's kind of like, well, it can't do that because it sees doing that option.
Yeah.
It can't attack with that. And the one thing it can attack with, it won't do much. No. Just a little scratch on the boat.
Oh no.
Like, kind of just shows how little firepower we have compared.
I know, I'm scared.
But it's a positive though.
I'm scared.
Because again, I guess it's just highlighting how dominant the US is.
It's good for them.
And well, good for us.
Yeah.
We'll work close allies,
They're citizens now.
We love you guys.
British best bet would be their submarines. They're fairly modern. Theoretically, the British could use their ballistic missile subs as attack subs as well, and speed up the entry into service of another astute sub, while keeping one Trafalgar running a bit longer, rummaging for retired sailors to crew it. Still, the British would be far outnumbered. US submarine fleet dwarfs theirs. Given a bit less time on station and British home advantage when it comes to resupply, the balance of power may not be quite 6-1. Still, it's no question the British subs would get hunted down within months. Aerial anti-submarine platforms would also play a large role. And while the British could use all their assets, even just the deployable portion of US assets would be enough to force the British subs into hiding. Furthermore, US carrier-based air power would make it hard for British anti-sub helicopters to operate. The main force projection would be done by US carriers, naturally. US could choose whether to use more carriers initially and then have less available later on, or to maintain a smaller number on constant patrol. To defeat the British Air Force, the former is more likely. US nominally has 11 carriers, but only 9 air wings. It does have an additional support wing, which is a lot bigger. It may be the source of 1 or 2 more combat wings after some months of preparation. But crews aren't the only issue. Lifespan of a carrier necessarily involves lengthy maintenance periods. Important to note is that the deployable period doesn't mean the carrier can actually be on a mission the whole time. Usually 1 or 2 deployments are made during those 18 months. Missions are usually 6 to 8 months long, and several months are needed to prep the carrier and its wing for another mission. Shorter missions might give more deployments in the short term, but
yeah, it's definitely a lot of groundwork, isn't it?
Yeah,
before,
definitely.
And you think they've got quite a few of these. Yeah, a lot of groundwork.
Yeah.
And you got to think the travel time, which is also an interesting one because we spoke about it a little bit. Do you know, like the journey these guys took in the American Revolution was all about. I said about a week in that video, didn't I?
Yeah, and everyone was like,
no, it would take at least a month.
Yeah.
Pretty much a month. Obviously, it's a lot shorter nowadays. But imagine doing that back then. Like, if this were back then, it's a whole month when obviously Britain was obviously taking over and stuff like that ages ago. It was a whole month just to get over there. And then the retreat is a month back. And then it's a long time. At least it's a lot more condensed now. Definitely.
But in the long term, they would require even more maintenance for every month spent out at sea. Because of all that, it's unrealistic US would send out more than 6 carriers at once, after a few months of prep time. Similar issues would affect the aviation assault ships. Perhaps 4 to 6 could be deployed at once, after some preparations. Grand total of combat planes US Navy and Marine Corps could muster in a few months long air campaign is thus smaller than the total number of US planes. US might fly in fresh planes to replace ones that got lost. Flying them over the ocean to a carrier would be doable. What could the British respond with? Royal Air Force is smaller than even the readily available US planes deployed on carriers. Another huge issue for the British would be their lack of air defenses. Everything they currently have are fairly low altitude systems, meaning the US would be free to bomb them from high up with guided weapons. UK would also suffer the US cruise missiles.
Yo, by the way, I just want to point out, shout out to Jersey. That's where we are, aren't we?
Like how small it is.
And literally the mouse is covering it. If you guys got to see, the mouse is literally at the bottom. I tell you one positive about that. It's not in red. It's not under
we're
attack.
We're not part of the UK, are we?
It's part of Britain.
Yeah.
It's part of Britain.
Yeah,
I suppose it focuses on
when
UK.
it comes to the war, we're not.
We're safe. I mean, we'll still come over to the US if this did kick off because I won't want to be closer to France. While
I'd rather be on the US side.
We'll just come to you guys, but technically we're not under attack.
I can't believe we made it on the map.
We made it on the map as well, but we're absolutely tiny down there.
We never make it on maps if you can't tell.
Missile barrage. While the Brits have some such missiles of their own, it's unlikely they would be used against the faraway US bases. Even the subs that could carry them would be better utilized for defense of the homeland. While not all could be launched at once, US could sustain the effort. The British Air Force would be mostly paralyzed on the ground. US has also a much bigger recon platform fleet, especially when it comes to satellites. British lack those, as in the real world they timeshare some US spy satellites.
I just keep hearing the words, the British lack those.
I know, it's not giving me much hope, to be honest. I think I've found out my answer already.
Oh yeah, that was pretty much answered in the first minute, wasn't
crushed.
It? It's like, we could put up a fight, like a small fight in some areas, and the US do have some struggles, and I guess we've got advantages with supply and stuff like that.
I don't hear them saying the US lack.
Yeah, exactly. Overall, it's just like, yeah, if they really wanted to, they could absolutely batter us, but we're friends.
US aircraft would be looking for targets as well. Britain would have no real means of scouting the US bases. US AWACS-type planes would be plentiful, while British ones would mostly be trapped on the ground, with runways and highways being mostly inoperative. Thus the Royal Air Force would slowly get destroyed on the ground. When they would be able to get some planes airborne, they still may not choose to engage the Americans, as it's likely US attack waves would be made of close to 100 planes with possibly as many fighters as Britain would muster per each local interception, or more. The best Britain could hope for would be a roughly equal kill ratio in the air, and when the losses on the ground are included over months of a protracted bombing campaign, US would still be left with a sizable force. All this didn't even include the US Air Force, While the scenario requires it to use the bases inside the US, Britain could be reached. At first, bombers would be deploying cruise missiles, but later on they would be likely used for bombing missions. But could the Air Force tactical plane fleet help out as well? With very ample in-flight refueling, the answer is yes. US operates the world's biggest air tanker fleet. The Hercules-based tankers, however, are too small and would use most of the fuel just to get near Britain. Still, the remainder of the fleet has a substantial fuel offload capacity, and tankers could refuel each other. Such ops may sound complex, but compared to what the British did in Falklands War, they're fairly basic. The British used a dozen tankers to refuel themselves repeatedly, keeping the bomber refueled throughout all of the route. Well,
I mean, that is something I actually don't know too much about. To me, again, give me your opinion on it, but is it not mental? Like, I have seen videos of it. Two planes are refueling each other.
Yeah, that's crazy.
In the air, going at whatever speed.
Yeah,
to me, it is
that's
mental.
mad.
Like, I get you can do it. And again, you're talking the Falklands War. That was quite a long time ago. But they had the technology to do
But
that.
I feel if you said that to somebody that didn't know, they'd be like, no, they don't. Like, what are you on about?
I feel like most people know about it, but I know what you mean. If you
I didn't know about it.
Oh, did you not? No, literally, yeah. So
I thought you were joking at first.
No, so we definitely got to react to a video of it, because pretty much the plane will like come underneath and there'll just be a massive, I don't know the ins and outs of it, I've only seen a couple of clips, and there'll be a massive like rod or pipe on it, go into the other plane while they're going at the speed, pump fuel into it, top it up. Yeah, we're still going in mid-air, aren't we? However many thousand.
That's crazy.
It is absolutely mental. And again, the fact we did it in the Falklands War, which I didn't know much about, to be honest with you, but we did that, is mental. And again, a bit of praise for the British. Yeah, I liked that.
A little bit.
To me, it just blows my mind that they can do that.
That's crazy.
Definitely.
all of the tanker fleet would not be available due to maintenance. The rest could still offload significant fuel loads just outside Britain if needed. With several refuelings per plane, US Air Force could still expect to have around 400 combat planes in action practically every day. The British would really have no chance in the air. Within months, the US would have complete control of the air. And thus the second phase of the invasion might commence. By that time, British ships would be mostly dead, even if they hugged the shores and just aided in the air defenses. British submarines might hold out a bit longer, if not being used to actively hunt down US ships. But even if British subs managed to kill 2 US vessels for each of their own, final result would be the end of the Royal Navy.
Wow.
So at around 6 months or so into the war, the landings would be mostly unopposed, except for the Royal Army defending the shores. 6 months would be enough for US to assemble pretty much all of their active and reserve assets. In addition to landing ships, US could count on numerous cargo assets of its Sea Lift Command and Reserve Fleet in case a port is secured. US Airborne could also help, with the numbers shown probably growing with newly trained paratroopers. Getting additional heavier equipment for them, however, would not be likely, given the time limit. US transport plane fleet is pretty big, and should be able to drop all the airborne troops within days. US could be looking at close to 30,000 troops during the first day, and close to 20,000 more the day after. Subsequent days would see fewer and fewer troops being added, and more supplies being brought in. The British would enjoy more soldiers than shown before. The reserve mentioned covers only the soldiers receiving some training periodically, and soldiers for whom some heavy equipment is stored. In an event of a total war, Britain would be using those 6 months to mobilize as many soldiers as possible. While they would be equipped with basically just rifles, and while their training would be less than adequate, they would still boost the overall numbers several times. Yet all those soldiers may not be enough, as UK has a problem of geography. Its landmass is just too large. Its coastline is very long. Even when taking just the western part of its coastline into account, the area to be defended is huge. And what about the islands?
To be fair, I say we just cut it off here. Leave Scotland.
And Wales, let them fight for themselves.
Yeah, leave Scotland and Wales, and we'll just be England. Yeah. Or people are going to get annoyed about it if they're from Wales and Scotland, aren't they?
Yeah, but it's just kind of truth, isn't it?
Yeah, just protect England. That's only because
in fact,
we're
actually,
English.
well,
to be fair,
Jersey, I'm Jersey, so do what you want.
We're safe. We're down here. We're not.
I'm out of the argument. I'm not involved.
I mean, even if it was just England, we're still absolutely dominated. absolutely battered. Which...
And if it was Jersey, it's over in like an
Jersey,
hour.
Jersey stand no chance. Like,
It's over in an hour. It's
done.
Yeah.
One ship rocks up outside, and if the UK say, "Nah, we ain't dealing with it," we're like, "Oh, okay, come onto the island then, come and visit us."
Perfect for US to take and entrench themselves at, before launching further landings from them.
Oh, there you go. The Isle of Man is technically not part of the UK. That's the same with Jersey, isn't it?
Jersey's not part of the UK, but
it's
part of Great Britain. Yeah.
Same as the Isle of Man, I assume.
Yeah.
Most of those areas are sufficiently far away from the mainland that British artillery would not be much of a factor. And what about Northern Ireland? There are just too many places for US to concentrate its assault on. The British would not be able to move their forces around easily and protect those islands or the Northern Ireland. So the islands would fall one by one. Then either Northern Ireland would be taken or part of Great Britain would fall. Hard to traverse overland Scotland would be an obvious choice, though that would also slow down US breakthrough as well later on. Cornwall or Devon are also decent picks, as British defenders lack room to swoop down on the US beachhead from all directions.
Cornwall,
though such areas would likely be more heavily populated by British military to begin with. Once the US manages to secure ports and airfields and brings in US Army reinforcements, it would be basically game over for the British. US would build up its helicopter force on the areas it has taken, which is considerable. While the British have a fleet of their own to help quickly distribute its forces where needed, their numbers are small. Both sides would of course be losing many helicopters, US to British low-level air defenses and British to US fighter cover, which would continuously be flying over the important areas. The British would have only a small part of shown inventory of heavy weapons present at any one point the US attacks. While US would also not be disembarking thousands of its Abrams tanks or 10,000 of other heavy combat vehicles, the overwhelming fire support coming from various directions would more than make up for it. Fire support from the ships may come in form of MLR units firing from the ships rather than actual gun barrage. US ships still lack long-range gun rounds. Attack helicopters are another way of concentrating force in one area quickly, but again the British are far outmatched, even if just half of US numbers are present. The issue for the Americans would be time. As the scenario asks what can be achieved within 1 year, US would be under pressure to progress from their multiple beachheads. Northern Ireland is likely to fall within the 1-year time limit, but only minor parts of the Great Britain would be overrun by the Americans during the same time period. The British would put up a hell of a fight. Ground troop loss ratio would favor the British somewhat, but when Air Force and Navy losses are added in, where Britain would suffer more heavily, the US would come out fine. With added large chunks of conquered territory, the US could call itself a victor. Big thanks goes to all my patrons on Patreon.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I think we just still say friends. There's no need for a war.
Exactly. Well, and if there is a war, just let's not have it between us.
Yeah, it's not us.
We
didn't do anything.
We definitely want to be on your guys' side if a war kicks out. We're just like the little cheerleaders.
Yeah.
You guys are the main attraction.
You're our biggest fans.
We're just the little cheerleaders for you guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. And let's do a shout out to our patrons as well. Their names are all in the description. Thank you so much. If you want to be a patron, the link is in the description as well. I would wait until the 1st of the month though, because I believe it recharges you on the 1st. I think
so
is
don't
what it
get
is.
charged twice in the next few days.
So wait a couple days. Actually, this may be going out on the 1st. So if it is the 1st today, I'm not sure. We're trying to get a couple.
I think it is.
it may. I'm not sure on the dates. To be honest with you, we're trying to pre-record a couple, aren't we, for Christmas and stuff like that. So if it's on the 1st. Sign up away, would seriously appreciate it. If it's not, wait a couple of days. I don't want you guys getting double charged like within a day. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's pretty much it for the video. If you've enjoyed it, smash that like button, smash that subscribe button as well, you absolute legends, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.